is very important. So from my standpoint, I really like to always be grounded in what our values are and how we decide to act as an organization. So we have a head start in the sense that the legislature, when they enacted the legislation creating the authority, at least set forth three different principles or values that they wanted us to be guided by. The first being Mauna Aloha, which is understanding the reciprocal value of the Mauna and long-term commitment to maintaining the integrity of Mauna Kea. The second being Opu Kupuna, understanding and embracing a duty and accountability to Mauna Kea, the natural environment, and to perpetuate the Native Hawaiian traditional and customary practices embedded in the landscape of the Mauna. And third, Holomua Oi Kela Kela, driven by creativity and innovation, constantly challenging the status quo with a stewardship of Mauna Kea that is informed based on existing knowledge and traditions, as well as on new and expanding knowledge. The authority should be mindful and observant of needs, trends, and opportunities, and seek new knowledge and opportunities in ways that enhance the ability to serve as stewards without jeopardizing the foundation of Aina Aloha. So I just wanted to start the meeting with understanding that those three values and principles have been already established. We can, as we move forward as an organization, kind of adopt additional values and principles that will guide our culture as an organization. But again, just wanted to kind of gently remind people that the legislature has initially at least provided us with some guidance on that. So with that, I understand the next item is public comments on agenda items. And I understand there is currently no one that signed up for any public comments. Lisa, is that correct?
Correct.
Sorry, John, this is Lily. I just wanted to point out that this meeting agenda, it was posted correctly and it was posted timely, but there's a typographical error on this meeting agenda. You'll see right under those words, meeting agenda, it says Thursday, May 16th.
Right.
But I will say that on the public meeting website for the state, it was posted timely and it was posted for today. So you can move forward with the meeting, but I would recommend that you have a motion, I guess, to amend the agenda to correct that typographical error so that it will reflect in the minutes, and then the minutes can be.
Could I get a motion to make that?
John, I'll make a motion to correct the typo from Thursday to Tuesday.
I'll second the motion. This is Noi.
Okay. Any discussion?
Also, John, to point out to you that we do have a quorum.
Yeah, thank you. Any discussion on that? Not all in favor? Any opposed? Thank you. Motion is carried. Next item of business is approval of the prior meeting minutes of April 13th, 2023. Is there any are there any well, why don't we get a motion first for approval of the minutes?
I so move. This is Noi.
And get a second.
A second.
Thank you. Any amendments to the minutes as posted? We're still working through how detailed the minutes have to be. We're also trying to work through this idea, and I was just told by Peggy that even if you post the video of the meetings, that you still might need written minutes, which kind of doesn't make sense to me. But nonetheless, we're trying to work through these minutes are very, very detailed, but we're trying to work through the level of information that we put on the minutes, because we will continue to post the actual recording of the meeting so that the public has full opportunity to see what occurs at the meeting. So if not, if any discussion, all those in favor? Any opposed? Thank you. Chair report, nothing specific to report, and I'll kind of give people updates as we hit the various items that are set forth in the agenda. Same as the governance. I don't know that as we move forward, I think we have to continue to leave governance as a subject matter on our agenda as we try to stand up the authority. But there are no specific items regarding governance, although let me just make, and this is actually covered in another section, but this is not pure governance, but each of you have received your oath of office, or Kalihoa, I have yours. I gotta send them to you. I gotta get your address. But we need everyone to those that have received those oaths of office to get them in and formally accept your appointment and take that particular oath. So with that,
John,
yeah, no, go ahead.
Sorry, I was trying to find the appropriate time to interrupt you. Just want to make sure that it is noted on today's agenda, as advised by our Deputy AG, that there needs to be a correction to the typo under the words meeting agenda, that this agenda is being held on Tuesday, May 16th in our written documentation.
Okay.
So that it's captured in our minutes. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Let's move. Anyone else have any matters they'd like to discuss under governance? If not, administration. We are trying to hire 3 consultants, as all of you know. One way to do it would be to issue a professional services agreement, which would allow us to select pre-qualified firms or individuals that have already submitted interest with DLNR to serve as consultants. We have done an initial review of the consultancy lists that the DLNR has. And I think I'm going to ask that we create a pig, and they may have to look further into that, because what a professional services agreement allows you to do is not to go through an RFP process and select someone that is already on the list. On the other hand, if there's not an organization that quite fits the requirements of what we're looking for, we may have to go through an RFP process. So it's sort of a detailed process for us even to hire consultants. So because of that, I was proposing to create a pig chaired by Doug Adams with Mana Beamer. And I've also determined that we don't need to have just authority members on a pig. We can have outside members or outside individuals. So the third individual, and I'm not sure that all of you have met him yet, but Wes Machida as the third member of the pig. Wes, for those of you who have not yet met him, is on loan to us part-time from the Speaker's office. Wes was the executive director of the ERS system. And subsequent to that, he was a department head for budget and finance. And I spent 30 some odd years working for the state, and has been very helpful in us trying to weave our way through some of the rules and regulations of the state. So my idea was that since he's been very helpful in terms of some of the technical challenges that we have and the technical challenges that we may encounter in terms of hiring a consultant, that I was going to suggest that he be the third member of this pig, trying to allow us to hire consultants. So with that, I need a motion to create the pig, and then we can have further discussion on that.
Yes, I do. This is Noy. I move that the three members named, proposed members be named to the permitted interaction group regarding consultants.
Okay, we
I'll
get
second that. Second, this is Rich.
Okay, thank you. Okay, any discussion, any concerns about creating that particular pig?
John, I just wanted to ask, will you be meeting with the pig at all? Because if so, then you also have to be named to the pig, even though you're
Right.
chair.
Yeah, I've not met with any of the pigs as a group.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good point though, Bonnie, as we go forward, right? I intend to. The way I primarily work through the chair. Which I think is appropriate and doesn't need me to be part of the pig, I think. Itself. So anyway, with that, all those in favor? Any opposed? Thank you. The next pig that I wanted to create was based upon the last discussion that we had at the last meeting that dealt with the decommissioning of the Caltech telescope. There was much discussion and much interest among the membership about the process that was going to be employed, as well as sort of monitoring what was happening, because this is the first decommissioning. The other point that was raised was that as further telescopes become identified for decommissioning, whether the authority itself could gather some best practices and other learnings that we might take from the Caltech decommissioning. So with that, having heard so much interest the last time, and understanding that this is the first, I wanted to create a pig to help monitor and come up with a list of best practices or learnings as it related to the Caltech decommissioning. And the proposal is to have that pig chaired by Paul Horner and have Lanakila
And Laura.
and Laura, I can't, sorry, I can't read one. Laura as members of that pig. I think it's really important, and it's a really important thing. The only caution, and I've raised that with each of the members of the pig, is that the actual management and operations of how the decommissioning is with Caltech. Right, so we can observe and monitor, but ultimately it's Caltech's call as to how the decommissioning actually occurs. So there's a fine line between monitoring and providing observations and then trying to take over the operations, which we shouldn't do and don't have the authority to do. So with that explanation, if I could get a motion to create this pig with the identified individuals. Paul,
Yeah, this is Noi. I move that the following members be appointed to the permitted interaction group to monitor Caltech Observatory decommissioning, and that would be Paul Horner, Lanakila Manguel, and Laura Kaakua.
Could I get a second, please?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion?
Yeah, John, I just want to agree with you about not getting confused about authority for this, because it's really following the current UH Comprehensive Management Plan decommissioning subplan as to the process they're using, which is an approved plan. And so just to emphasize what you were saying, that it's really monitoring that process and then learning from it, so that when the authority is eventually has authority over that process, we may make some improvements or changes based on what we see. This is the first one being decommissioned by those rules, so I think it's a good idea to have the pig. I just wanted to reiterate what you said about authority. The other question I had was, there will be decommissioning of Hoku Kea coming up fairly soon as well, and I wonder do you want to just form this pig only for the CSO and learn from that alone, or you want to open it up to both of them? Is a question.
The question I have is that Hoku Kea is so much different. There's real no telescope there, right? So it's a dismantling of the small little building, right?
So there's no telescope, but there are some similar issues like with underground utilities, fiber optic, that kind of thing. And some of the ones that are connected to Hoku Kea also serve other observatories. So it's a much smaller facility. And yeah, you're not going to have the big mirror coming down the hill or anything like that. But there are other things that the group might want to monitor.
So could I get an amendment to the original motion to include Hoku Kea?
Yes, so as the mover, I will amend that motion so that the permitted interaction group will monitor the two upcoming decommissioning processes, which includes Caltech Observatory and Hoku Kea.
I second the amended motion.
Okay, further discussion, any comment? Paul, do you have anything?
Yeah, luckily, Greg Chun really helped me along through the process. A couple of weeks ago, their website with a comprehensive plan really is very helpful. But I found he sent me a couple of links, and then one of the links off of that Mauna Kea Stewardship website from University of Hawaii. There's a link on the right-hand side of that page. When you click on the decommission link, you have all the information lined up right in a row, on the left-hand side. Once you start doing it, including all the public information that's going out on a timely basis. So that's really made it a lot easier for us to follow.
Right.
In fact, I can send a copy of the document. I sent you a copy of a document with the two links explaining what they are. And I also, another great thing was Dr. Galwala did his presentation. So it was nice to see that. And I went and reviewed it again from our last board meeting on April 13th. And it made a lot more sense to me after looking at the links and then going back to his presentation. It made a lot more things. I could put it in order a lot better. So
Thank you.
looking forward to it.
And I will just add to what Rich mentioned. I do appreciate the way you've clarified it, John, because when I first saw this on the agenda, I said, well, we're already doing monitoring. So who's monitoring whom doing what? And I trust that members of the PIG have a better sense of the scope, because as I understand from Greg, there are weekly meetings with CSO, and I don't know if our PIG members are going to be attending those. I don't know what monitoring means. I know it doesn't mean managing, but I guess I'd like, or maybe there isn't more clarification on what monitoring means.
I think the PIG will have to kind of figure it out as we go.
Okay.
But the line I want to make sure that we don't cross is we don't get into operate. I mean, if they choose to sit in on all the meetings, they choose to sit on all the meetings. But hopefully they don't get to a point where we're trying to dictate what happens. And I think Paul's observation and comment about the fact that there is already a plan and people are following the plan should provide us further assurance that this has been well thought, this has been thought out for years and years and years, right? So let's not be an impediment and truly monitor, I guess. I mean, if there's something really important, they should feel free to raise it, but at the same time, let's make sure that we understand what our role is. Okay. Further questions, comments? If not, all in favor? Any opposed? Thank you. Next, I'm gonna call on Rich to give us a status on our executive assistant hiring.
Wait, hold on. Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you. I didn't see, Kalihua. His camera is off, so I can tell if he raised his hand on that vote.
Okay,
And Doug Adams as well. Yeah.
okay,
You guys have to,
favor.
camera. Thank you.
And Doug, you're in favor?
Doug has.
Okay, abstain for now.
Yeah, we had 6 votes. Yeah.
Doug,
No, I voted yes. I raised my hand
okay,
when I was on screen.
okay, thank you. So Rich was going to give us a general report, and because it deals with personnel matters and people that have applied, we'll have a little more detailed report when we go into executive session. So this is just a general kind of overview of what Rich and Kalihua and Pomai have been doing. They've met and interviewed a lot of people. So go ahead, Rich.
Okay, thank you so much. So this is regarding the hiring committee activity on or hiring panel activity on the MKSOA executive assistant. So we've made good progress. We completed first round of interviews of a total of 8 applicants. So these were the applicants that we felt were had enough of the recommended qualifications to warrant or not an in-person but a Zoom interview. And the committee has been pleased with the overall caliber of this pool. And so we've closed the application period. Next steps are that we will select down to the top candidate or candidates and do reference checks. So that's the next phase of things. And we intend, if we can stay on schedule, to make a hiring recommendation to the full board at the June meeting. So that's the basics. Kalihua, would you like to add anything to that?
No, perfect, Rich. Mahalo.
And we can get more into the detail, as I mentioned, in our executive session.
Just
Okay.
one note, John. Our member Doug Adams has had to leave the meeting. We still have a quorum though.
Okay, thank you. All right, so the next item, I just want, my intention is to tee up the item for further discussion in our next meeting. But as all of you know, as of July 1st, we become co-managers with the Center for Mauna Kea Stewardship. The statute itself doesn't clearly set forth what that co-management means. But I, you know, Greg and I maybe talk about this weekly. And based upon that discussion, just to get people thinking about what co-management means, kind of set out a framework of things for people to consider. For example, at a really high level, there is, when we say co-management, who from our authority will be involved in being the point person or the contact person with the Center for Mauna Kea Stewardship? And more importantly, what kind of authority would that individual have to agree? What kind of issues would that individual representing the authority have to bring back for discussion with the larger group or with a subcommittee of this larger group? what kind, how do we create a framework for the individual representing us dealing with the CMS in terms of what they'll be able to kind of agree on their own and not have to bring back to the larger group. But that's from an internal standpoint, that's one thing. From an external standpoint, what kind of decisions would we anticipate having to weigh in on with CMS? Certain of the items that CMS will be doing or already engaged on are mandatory. They're either required by statute or rules. So if it's a mandatory, is there a difference between a mandatory type action that CMS is undertaking, or is it more a discretionary action? And which kinds of actions would CMS have to kind of get our concurrence on? And to break it down further, if it's a mandatory action, are there different courses of action that can achieve that mandatory goal? If so, would we have to be consulted as a group about the different courses of action and agree as co-manager to the proposed course of action on a mandatory required? I know I'm going around in circles, but I'm trying to do the best I can to explain a sort of complicated issue. But that's kind of the framework on a discretionary action. How is that presented? And overall, the other thing that concerns me is how do we do things on a timely basis, right? We cannot create a system that's going to be so convoluted and complicated on our side that we impede sometimes necessary action, right? In terms of timely kind of response to them. So anyway, that's the big issue. It's coming up July 1st, right? So we need to give some really deep thought, and the members have to give some deep thought to how they think. And I think we'll spend way more time. We can spend some time now and get people's thoughts or get clarification on what the problems or issues are. But we'll have to have a way deeper dive into this in June. So I wanted, like I said, to tee it up for all of you to start thinking about, because it is co-managing something presents a lot of challenges a lot of times. So I don't know if people have comments or have different. I would invite different perspectives, different frameworks that you guys think about. Even now, to just get people's juices flowing in terms of discussion for our next meeting. So comments.
As you might imagine, being right in the middle of it, I have lots of questions, but for now, I would just say it's not just about our relationship with CMS, it's also about our relationship with the Mauna Kea Management Board and Kahuku Mauna, right? Because insofar as CMS and the university will continue working on things, those are the advisory groups that we use. And so it might be, I don't want to get into too many details, but it might be useful to have someone from this body, other than me, attending those meetings on a regular basis or something. I don't know, but we shouldn't forget those bodies in this general co-management conversation.
Yeah, good point. That it gets further complicated if we create our own. We're required to create our own advisory groups too, right? So what would be the relationship of our advisory groups in terms of them giving us advice in terms of how we co-manage, right?
Yeah, the MKMB, we were even discussing whether it would be possible for the two groups to meet together. It would be an interesting conversation and would almost have to be done in an open meeting just because of the various ins and outs of Sunshine. And with two different attorneys in the room, we might as well just do it out in the open. But so I know that that group is also interested in what their role is vis-a-vis this body.
So my question, John, is I like the idea of what Bonnie just proposed, that, you know, is there a possibility of having our entire group and whoever needs to be there, which includes the Mauna Kea board, Kahuku Mauna, and others from the university, to spend a day together just sort of working through all these possibilities? Does it have to be a public forum, which makes it very, very challenging, or can it be more of a workshop type process where decisions are not necessarily made, but relationships are built and discussions are convened, you know, so that we can look at all these opportunities. So that would be a question for you to possibly bring up with our attorney generals.
Okay. Will do.
I think it's a really unique situation. It's not, you know, it's not the norm to have two bodies like this have to interact. But yeah, I think it's important what Bonnie said. And I further propose that we do this in June. If there's an opportunity to pick a day in June when we could convene such a gathering.
Okay.
John, I have some comments just about the immediate near-term future because of the fact that we don't have any full-time employees yet. That I'm just reflecting on your comment about being timely. And so I would think, at least in the very beginning, until we hire an executive director and maybe a couple other staff, that we not involve ourselves in the day-to-day management type decisions of, you know, activities happening on a daily basis on the Mauna. So we don't try to change what the rangers are doing or things like that at least until we have some staff, because I believe with all of us as volunteer board members, if we were to create a gate through any of us, we'll really slow things down. So that's just a comment about the immediate near term.
I guess one of the things that we're going to have to define what is day to day, right? I mean, you know, I get what you're saying, but how do we provide some guidance as to what that encompasses? Yeah.
Yeah, I think we need to think about that. Yeah.
And as long as the university holds the legal responsibility, there are some things that we're going to insist on doing until such time as the leases can migrate or whatever's going to happen there.
I don't know if this is like, you know, playing the devil's advocate, but it sounds like these are operational components to like the next 100 days. And I don't know, like still in my mind in the system creation and how we push out into kind of generating what we're going to do and developing our process and plan. I just want to know how a lot of these things fit into where we're going, you know, and I don't know if we've had the conversations yet to better understand how that's tied into what we're doing, because I just don't want to be walking through and then drawing, oh, maybe we got to talk to these guys and we should be doing this, and from week to week and month to month we're just kind of drawing at straws on what we're doing. Better strategically plan up front and then enact a plan. And I don't know if that even sorry.
No, that makes a lot of sense to me, Kaliwa. What you're saying is that we can't be reactive. We have to be proactive, right, in terms of where we want to go. So I'm actually trying to put together a complete list of all of the things that we have to do, and I'm up to like 23. But I think we have to do things concurrently, right? The operations have to continue along, but our response or whatever we're doing has to be guided by what other things we have to do, right? For example, we have to create a management plan, right? We have to create a framework for astronomy. We have to do several other really big projects. But those should be guiding what we're doing on operations. So concurrently, we have to be doing both at the same time. But that's why it's imperative that we get staffing as soon as possible to help us. But I agree 100% with what you said. Paul, Jean, you have anything you wanted to add?
The only, I think we've touched on it before, but I think it's going to really come into focus is your list of 23 so far. Those are not trivial items. Having gone through this with the university, these are really very large and challenging issues that need to be developed and then need to be turned into documentation that, at least in the case in the current environment, need to be approved. So I can't overemphasize how much work is required in several of these documents.
And that keeps me up at night. Let alone identifying them and thinking, we actually got to do something. So Paul, you had something you wanted to contribute?
No, not really. I'm just trying to absorb all the information that's coming out now, because I know CMP and those guys have the plan they have. There's so many details out there. I'm just trying to absorb as much as I can. I don't want to step on anybody's toes through the process. I want to listen and learn before I speak.
Thank you. So anyway, just trying to tee it up. I think I probably have to come up with a more detailed framework, and I'll work on whether or not this workshop type of idea of combining the two groups is something that we can do. And work with Peggy and Lily to see if it's feasible to do without with privately meeting, I guess is the word. Just to have a discussion, no decision making, but just to kind of identify the issues and then have a discussion about how we interrelate with the university. And that's not even talking about what we do with DLNR also, right? So that's another big group that we have to figure out, because they're in charge of a lot of the the conservation type issues and the permitting, and to a large extent enforcement. The rangers, just so you guys know, the rangers don't have the authority to enforce anything, so they rely on DLNR to be the enforcement arm for some of the rules and regulations. So it is a very, very complex issue. But let's see what we can do in terms of bringing the two groups together and having a free-flowing ideas exchange. Yeah. Okay, everybody looks very concerned now. Your faces, come on. Don't worry, we'll get through all of this. So anyway, that's why I just wanted to mainly bring that up, like I said, to kind of kickstart everybody's thinking for the next, whatever the next meeting, may not be the next meeting, but for whatever we're going to do as a group together. Okay. The next, anybody else want to make any comments before we move to the next topic? The next topic deals with the legislative budget update. We were, as you recall, we had asked for a budget of $14 million annually going forward, understanding that a lot of our request was based upon sort of contingent matters that might occur. But we wanted to have the flexibility if appropriate to expend money. So luckily, we have been provided with a operational budget of $14 million for the 23-24 fiscal year, and then another $14 million for the 24-25. So the legislature has provided us with at least sufficient funding that we would have to get released by the governor. The way it works, so all of you know, just because the legislature appropriates the money doesn't mean that we have the money. The governor has to take affirmative action to release those funds to us upon our request. So we have at least the legislative approval for that $14 million for each of the upcoming fiscal years. They also approved, we had asked for an additional 5 state headcount. They've also approved that. So I'm working with Wes Machito that headcount doesn't take effect until July 1st. So Wes and I have been working on, let me say that the headcount deals with an executive director, administrative officer, couple of program specialists, and I think another administrative support person. So Wes and I have been working on creating job descriptions for those positions, with the idea being that we want to have those job descriptions approved by all of you so that on July 1st, we can actually start recruiting and trying to bring additional people on board rather than waiting for July 1st and then we start doing all of that, right? If we have time now, Wes and I have been trading job descriptions on some of these positions already. So we want to get ahead of the game to the point where July 1st, let's be able to start the recruiting process. So, so the legislature, like I said, has been very, very supportive of what we're doing, what we're faced with. So we have the money. We just got to figure out how and when, where to spend it. And not to say that we'll spend it just, you know, we're going to spend it responsibly, but we have that opportunity. I don't know if anyone has any questions about that. Okay, operation update. As we mentioned, all of you have, maybe you guys regret that after this last 5 minutes, but all of you have been confirmed to be members of the authority, but now realizing, holy moly, what have I got myself into just in terms of the management of the Mauna. Too late, you guys are already confirmed. Fill out your oaths of office. That's very important to get those filled in. If you have any questions about that oath of office, you know, bring them up to me and I'll get clarification either through DLNR or through our attorney generals. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Greg to give us an update on what the CMS has been up to and doing. Greg.
Thank you, John. Aloha, everyone. Good to see you. Yeah, I just have a few things to update you folks on this month. Some of which touch on I'll provide some details on some of the things you already discussed. First item I have is the CSO decommissioning. CSO continues to finalize the design of the cradle that they have to build to transport their mirror to Kauai High and then eventually to Chile. The design challenge for the cradle is it's complicated because the cradle needs to tilt on the flatbed truck as it descends the access road, and it needs to tilt to be able to pass through the switchbacks in some of the narrower sections of the access road. So the engineering of the cradle itself is taking some time, longer than they thought. The target date right now for removing the mirror is late June, early July. And if you recall from Sunil's presentation, it actually involves a couple of step process. They actually have to do a dry run with the cradle down to Kauai High, which is a 2-day process itself, before they can actually do the actual movement. So at this point, that's when they're targeting moving of the mirror. Deconstruction of the facility itself would start after that the mirror has been removed. So, you know, the one question I had, which Chancellor Irwin has already brought up, is sort of the role of the decommissioning PIG that you folks have now set up. And I think it probably would be best to have some conversations with the PIG as to how they are envisioning wanting to capture these lessons learned as we go forward. Hokukea decommissioning, as I shared with you folks at the last meeting, the Conservation District Use Permit was approved by the Land Board on April 14th. So now we're working on securing the county permits. And those permits would cover the deconstruction of the facility itself. It is a much simpler project. It's a much smaller building, but still requires all of the same steps that you would go through with any other facility. So we're working on those county permits now. We don't have a good time frame or estimate for when those permits will be issued. The next item I had was just sort of for your information, because it's the kind of thing that the authority, once you assume full responsibility for operations, that will come up from time to time. So on April 16th, there was a power disruption to the summit, and several observatories, as Rich knows, several observatories, as well as a communications network, were impacted. That was a Sunday. Helco sent a crew up late that evening. Along with our staff, they were able to troubleshoot the matter in the short term. But it was determined that the repairs required to permanently address the issue, which was a fault in the line, would actually require a planned outage at a later date. So it took them a couple of weeks to sort of put that whole plan together, because there's a lot of coordination that has to occur when you have a planned outage like this. So the planned outage did take place on May 5th, and they actually were able to complete the repair that same day in about 3 to 4 hours. The network disruption issues lingered for a couple more days, but those were resolved by Hawaiian Tel on May 7th, actually. So as I said, I'm sharing this with you because this is the sort of thing that comes up that your operations will need to be responsible for. Management of summit utilities especially during emergencies, requires a great deal of coordination with Helco, Hawaiian Tel, the observatories, and our own CMS staff. And then depending on the nature and scope of the problem, other agencies may also be impacted, such as civil defense. And so they might need to be pulled in as well. And again, it's just an example of the 24/7 nature of the operation that needs to be built into your operations model as you folks move forward. Next item I have is University of Montana Human Performance Program currently is in residence at HP. They have been coming here to Mauna Kea for several years. They're involved in a multi-year study looking at human performance in extreme environments. The program includes a variety of daily strenuous activities with a number of physiological measurements that they take and they monitor with their subjects. One of the new components they told me they added this year is a sleep monitoring component. So they're actually having their subjects actually sleep in oxygen tents at night to see how that affects their recovery times and whatnot. I think this is about the 4th or 5th year, I forget, of this study. But it's the kind of a unique opportunity that is provided by this unique environment that we're, privileged to be working in up here. And we'd like to be able to expand and do more of that kind of stuff with University of Hawaii and others as things go forward. And hopefully you folks will consider some of those kinds of activities occurring here as you folks develop your plans as well. Then the last thing I have is just a couple of announcements on some key employee transitions. We're really, really happy to announce we have filled our education and outreach coordinator position. Ian Kaleo Pilago, who started with us on May 1st. He is formerly with Hawaii Community College. Currently, he is undergoing his orientation, getting oriented to all of our operations and programs. He will be working closely with our advisory groups, but in particular, Kahuku Mauna. It's one of his job duties. Among our goals are to work closely with our UH, Hilo, and HCC faculty and students to expand educational uses at HP. He'll be working on expanding outreach to the public, private, and charter schools. He'll also be working with Imiloa on the visitor information station exhibits and some of the programming improvements we want to do there that are being planned. He's also coordinating, part of his job will be to coordinate with the other observatory outreach programs to make sure that we're reaching audiences that are not currently being served or being underserved. And then I've also asked him to, as he develops his plan, to be sure to include a staff development component so that we can continue to support our staff in their understanding both from a cultural, historical, as well as a sociological and environmental perspective, this special place that we work in. So he's got a big plate that he's got to fill, a lot on his plate, but we're really excited to have him. The other announcement I have is, as some of you know, Stuart Hunter, who is our general manager of our Mauna Kea Support Shared Services Group. He is retiring as of May 31st this month. Happy to announce that we have hired Rodrigo Romo as our new Mauna Kea Shared Services General Manager. He was previously manager of the Visitor Information Station and is now undergoing his training and orientation with Stuart. Also happy to announce that Stuart is not leaving. He has agreed to continue to service the Mauna, supporting Nahua and I on special projects, and will be available during the MKSOA transition process for education and orientation as needed. It's something that he is personally committed to making sure happens to support the transition to you folks. So two really big employee transitions that we're going through now.
Any questions for Greg?
Yeah. Any questions?
Hey, Bonnie, Greg's report triggered, I forgot to mention a legislative, I forget exactly how they provide funds to UH Hilo to create a program to look into some of the creation of a sort of an industry to support the telescopes in terms of manufacturing, engineering, etc. Can you kind of further elaborate on that?
Yeah, so this is two functions. We talked about it in this group, I think, a couple of meetings ago, because I remember the conversation. We haven't seen the worksheets yet. And so I don't want to say definitely what everything is in it, but my understanding was the 10 engineering positions for Manoa, but 5 will be located here at Hilo. And then a facility to design, manufacture optics and some other things that would help our current observatories to serve their needs. Because right now, they have to import a lot. And not only is it costly to do that, but we're essentially exporting jobs, right, that could be done here. And so the idea is if we had something here, and then this facility would be probably built somewhere on UH Hilo land here down in town. We have a couple of ideas, but again, very early days there. I am personally really interested in the engineering position because as Doug would tell you, there've been a hui in the community has been trying to get an engineering program at UH Hilo for a very long time. I've made it clear that to stand up a whole engineering school on this campus would be cost prohibitive in my opinion, but if we can get some help from Manoa to offer more curriculum here so that a Hawaii Island student who may want to go into engineering wouldn't have to go to Honolulu for more than, I'm hoping, 12 to 18 months in the end, and still be able to get a UH engineering degree. So that's the piece of this project that I'm far more invested in, frankly, than the facility. But we are meeting, I believe it is next week, the players, which is me, Doug Simons, Brennan Morioka, and Vasilis Sirmos, and to kind of try to figure out next steps.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for either Greg or Bonnie? Not if we could get a motion to go into executive session.
So moved. This is Gene.
Okay. So could I get a second?
Second, 9-9.
So I understand that the motion would be consultation with the authorities attorney on questions and issues pertaining to the authorities' powers, duties, privileges, immunities, and liabilities pursuant to section 92-5, parens A, close parens 4, close parens 4 revised statutes regarding proposed legislation, governance, administration, and finance. Okay, all those in favor? Any opposed? If not, we'll go into executive session. So Lisa will put us into breakout room. Thank you.
Aloha,
Thank you.
everyone.
Here, right? Yeah, I didn't put us in the.
Kalehua, can you text me your address? I don't know why they want me to be in charge of you, but they send me your oath of office. So just text me. So I don't know. The UH mail doesn't get to you, so DLNR mail doesn't get to you, so I gotta mail you your oath of office.
Will do. They get my address though.
Okay. Alrighty, Lisa, are you guys back? We don't see you right now. I see your, there we go.
Oh,
Okay, thank you. There's, nothing for us to vote on. So announcements, our next meeting, and we'll try to hold to this is, June 8th at 10 a.m. Any other announcements? Not, we have a lot to follow up on, and we'll try to get back to everyone, forthwith to make sure that, we stay on schedule. All right, so thank you everybody for attending, appreciate it, and we'll see you on June 8th, if not sooner.
Motion,
Oh, we need a motion to adjourn.
sorry.
I'll move to adjourn. Second.
Okay, all in favor? Thank you. Any opposed? Nope. Okay, thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Uh,
Bye, everyone.
You.
Thanks.